Let's talk about anger. It's something every single one of us feels, right? It can be a tiny flicker of irritation or a full-blown inferno. And, sometimes it's a perfectly normal, even healthy response. But when does it cross the line? It becomes a real problem when it feels less like an emotion you're having and more like something that's having you. Have you ever had that feeling like your anger is just in the driver's seat and you're just along for the ride? If you have, you are so not alone. But here's the good news. There is a totally practical, straightforward way to get your hands back on the wheel. So let's get right into how you can do that. So here's our game plan. We're going to walk through a step-by-step guide based on some really solid cognitive behavioral strategies. We'll start with what anger actually is, then we'll map out its pattern. From there, we dive into the good stuff, the practical tools, learning your own warning signs, building a control plan, changing the thoughts that fuel the fire, and then figuring out that all-important first step. All right, first things first, we have to build a solid foundation. There are so many myths and misconceptions floating around about anger, so let's start by separating the pure emotion from the actions it can sometimes trigger. Okay, this right here, this is probably the most important distinction we're going to make today. Anger is just a feeling. It's an internal thing. Aggression, on the other hand, is a behavior. It's an external action. Yelling, punching a wall, you name it. Here's the key takeaway. You can feel furious without acting aggressively. The goal is never to stop feeling anger. That's impossible. The goal is to stop that anger from turning into aggression. Let's just blow up some of these common myths. First, this idea that you're just born angry and can't change? Totally false. How we express anger is learned, and anything that's learned can be unlearned. And this last one, oh, this is a big one. Venting by screaming into a pillow or hitting something, it feels like it should work, right? But the research is clear. It doesn't release anger. It actually just reinforces the connection between feeling angry and acting aggressively. It's like practicing being aggressive. Okay, so if we're trying to stop anger from turning into aggression, we need to understand how that happens. It's not a random lightning strike. It almost always follows a predictable three-phase pattern, and once you see the pattern, you can learn to interrupt it. I want you to think of it like a wave. You've got the buildup, where the wave is gathering energy, the explosion, where it crests and crashes down, and the aftermath, which is all the stuff left on the beach after the wave recedes. Our entire mission here is to learn how to intervene before that wave crashes. So let's break down each phase. The buildup phase, this is everything. This is your golden opportunity. It's that moment when you feel that little bit of irritation starting to simmer. It's when your body's internal alarm system starts to go off. Maybe your heart starts pounding, or you start replaying an argument in your head. This is your window. This is the moment you can use your tools to bring that anger meter back down before it redlines. Now, if that buildup just keeps climbing and we don't intervene, that's when we hit the explosion phase. This is the point of losing control. It's the outburst itself, the yelling, the slammed door, the thing you say that you can't take back. It's a massive discharge of energy, and it almost always leads to some pretty bad consequences. And that brings us to the aftermath. After the storm, there's the cleanup. This phase is all about those negative consequences. It's the guilt, the shame, the awkward apology you have to make, the trust you might have broken. The pain of the aftermath is honestly one of the biggest reasons people want to change. It's the motivation to get better at breaking the cycle back in the buildup phase. So how in the world do you intervene during that critical buildup phase? It all starts with one thing: self-awareness. You have to become a detective of your own emotions and learn to spot the personal warning signs, your anger cues, that tell you things are escalating. Think of your anger cues like the check engine light in your car. They're your body's early detection system telling you, hey, something's up, pay attention, before the whole engine blows. Learning to actually notice and listen to these signals gives you the precious time you need to make a different choice. Now, these cues usually fall into four main buckets. You've got physical cues, how your body physically reacts, your face gets hot, your chest feels tight. Then there are behavioral cues, the things you start to do, like pacing around or clenching your jaw. Emotional cues are really interesting because they're often the feelings hiding underneath the anger, like hurt or fear. And finally, cognitive cues. That's all about your thoughts, that angry voice in your head, the revenge fantasies. The key here isn't to memorize this list, but to figure out what your specific cues are. So you can recognize your cues. You feel your fists clenching, and you know what that means. Now what do? Well,
You need a plan, not just a fuzzy idea, but a concrete, go-to list of strategies you can use the second you spot a warning sign. This is what we call your anger control plan.
I absolutely love this toolbox analogy. You wouldn't show up to fix a car with just one screwdriver, right? You need options. Your anger control plan is exactly that. It's your personal toolbox, filled with different techniques that you've already decided work for you. So, what kind of tools are we talking about? Well, taking a time out is a classic for a reason. Just physically removing yourself from the situation can work wonders. Relaxation, like deep belly breathing, can literally calm your nervous system down. Calling a friend who isn't involved can give you some much-needed perspective. And exercise, a fantastic way to burn off all that nervous energy in a healthy way. The point is to have a few of these ready to go. And this quote really just says it all, doesn't it? The whole goal is to build a rich, diverse toolbox. Sometimes a timeout is the perfect tool. Other times, a quick breathing exercise is all you need. The more options you have, the more powerful and in control you're going to feel when anger starts to bubble up. Okay, now we're going to level up. So far, we've mostly talked about managing the response to anger. This next tool is way more powerful because it helps you tackle anger at its very source, your own thoughts. It's a technique called cognitive restructuring. The big idea here is pretty simple. It's not actually the events in our lives that make us angry, it's our interpretation of those events. It's that little voice in your head, your self-talk, that can turn a small spark into a forest fire. Cognitive restructuring is the process of learning to catch that hostile self-talk and actively challenge it. And the ABCD model is a super practical way to do this. Let's walk through it with a classic example. A is the activating event. Someone cuts you off. B is your automatic belief. That jerk, they did that on purpose to disrespect me. C is the consequence. You feel intense rage. But here comes the game changer. D is for dispute. You challenge that first belief. You ask yourself, is that really true? And offer an alternative. You know what? Maybe they're just having a terrible day and didn't even see me. Can you feel how that simple act of disputing can just drain the anger right out of the situation? A lot of our anger comes from these really rigid, unspoken rules we have for the world, like people should be considerate or life must be fair. But the world doesn't always play by our rules, does it? So when reality breaks our rules, we get angry. The trick is to swap these rigid beliefs for more flexible, realistic ones. Instead of demanding fairness, you can say, life isn't always fair, but you know what? I can handle it. That's not being weak, that's taking your power back. Now, maybe that whole ABCD model feels like a bit much when you're already seeing red. Fair enough. For those moments, there's a simpler, more direct tool, thought stopping. It is exactly what it sounds like. The moment you catch your mind spiraling down that angry rabbit hole, you mentally yell, stop, or nope, we are not going there. It's like an emergency brake for your thoughts. It creates a tiny pause, just enough time to pull out a different tool from your control plan. Whew, we have covered a ton of ground. We've gone from understanding the anger cycle to building a whole toolbox of strategies. But listening to all this is one thing. The real magic, the real change, happens when you start putting it into practice. So let's just boil it all down. What are the most crucial takeaways? Number 1, it all starts with spotting your cues. Number 2, your power is in the build-up phase. That's where you can break the cycle. Number 3, your best defense is a personal toolbox with lots of options. Number 4, for real, long-term change, you gotta practice challenging the thoughts that light the fuse. And finally, remember, this isn't about perfection. It's about small, consistent steps, day in and day out. And that brings us right here to the most important question of all. This isn't just about learning cool concepts, it's about making a change. So I want you to think. What is one small, concrete step you can take after this? Will you just try to identify one of your physical cues this week? Will you write down 2 things for your control plan? Maybe you'll just practice 1 deep breath when you feel frustrated. The whole journey of taking control begins with one small step. So, what's yours going to be?